Good morning, good morning. Welcome to everybody. It is the Sundae Brunch, and I've learned something about StreamYard and the lag because when I played that fun little animation intro video that I built, I saw that it didn't start at the beginning. So in the future, I'm gonna have to start the stream a little bit earlier and make sure that nobody misses anything, and that's really good information for anyone else that uses StreamYard to have. I'll play the video at the end again in case you missed it and want to catch it. But it was just something that I had some fun putting together. I hope everybody is having a great Sunday. It is wonderful to see you all. Hope that you've had a really good day so far. It's early for most of us. I think it is just past noon in the east now, 9 a.m. for me. I've made myself a cup of coffee, one of the first ones that I've had in a very, very long time, and I've had about 2 sips, and I'm a little bit punchy, so we are going to have some fun. Today is all about buckle motifs and also dating earrings using their findings. I'm wearing one of my favorite buckles right now. This is a Victorian buckle, and we're gonna dig into that. And I've got a ring. And as always, we will be doing a fun giveaway for the Sundae Brunch mug. So the only way that you can get yourself one of these gigantic 20-ounce mugs is by joining the giveaway. Today, in order to join the giveaway, all that you need to do is enter buckle, #buckle in all caps. I'm not going to put you to work, although we are going to have a little bit of a guessing game midway through our brunch today. As always, this Sunday brunch is focused on sharing knowledge and education, trying to answer questions as well. So it is my goal to try and keep up with the comments and make this as interactive as possible. We will start with buckles in jewelry. We will move into earrings and their findings. We'll do some spot the listing error games. We'll do our giveaway, and then we'll do a little bit of virtual shopping too. So I hope you're all ready to have a wonderful time. I'm going to hide this ticker, but please help each other out so that everybody knows how to enter the contest, and it is #buckle to win one of these gigantic mugs shipped directly to your house. And without further ado, we're going to begin. So buckles in jewelry, they have been popular for a very, very long time. And many people say that this stems back to the Order of the Garter. So I thought I'd start off by telling you a little bit about the Order of the Garter. And there's no better way than to show you their logo. So let's take a look at that right now. And here it is. So you can see with the Order of the Garter, and this is the British Order, known as the most noble Order of the Garter, that was created in 1348 by King Edward III. These were appointed positions, and really only 24 people were appointed this at a time, and slowly over time as well. It was for serving the nation, doing something really special, very important. And so these were used as embroidered emblems that were put on the left arm, usually over the blue knight's cloak. So here we have a beautiful illuminated manuscript, this one being from, around 1400 or so. It was done by the first recipient of the Order of the Garter, and it really shows how it was worn and that it was special. Now this segues very nicely into the first piece that we're going to look at, because often this is considered to have a lot to do with Scottish jewelry. And I wanted to show you a Scottish brooch that I have to start off with. And this one is really beautiful. We've got the inset agate as well as silver. This is circa 1860, and you can see the motifs. You've got the bottom of the buckle hanging down as well as the buckle on the side. I will show you the back as well so that you can see that long pin that is extending, just like they did during the Georgian period as well, to make sure that they could make their way fully through cloaks or other thick fabrics. And then we have the old T hinge as well, which is exactly what you want to see. Now, you are going to be able to notice that almost at 12 o'clock, like right at 11, there is a sticky mark there. And what that is residue from some tape that a dealer had on this brooch from long, long ago. And I wanted to show that and point it out because this is a really good reminder for everyone. If you have plastic stickers on your brooch or on your jewelry, take them off, don't put them there. So here is that fantastic Montrose agate brooch. Now, Montrose looks a lot like lace agate, but it is not the same. This is from Scotland, and I wanted to start with this piece here. Now, to the Victorians, wonderful buckles had a lot of symbolism to them. And throughout the Victorian era, this is a really large, heavy one, large and in charge, the buckle motif continued. And it wasn't just in the like in Britain and the colonies, it was across the world. So we're going to cover some really interesting different regions as well. But first, let's talk a little bit about the Victorian period. So again, it was split into three eras. We've got the Romantic era, which was about 1837 to 1860, and that was when Queen Victoria was very much in love, and they actually decided to buy the castle, which became the castle that they rebuilt at Balmoral. She fell in love with Scottish jewelry, and the influence that she had in taking back some of these Scottish stones and jewelry being seen in paintings and renditions that were done in a lot of the newspapers at the time is what made this Scottish jewelry so popular. So one of the first Victorian pieces I'm going to show you before we jump in and look at some of the slides I've put together is this bracelet. So it is also a buckle motif. You can see the buckle and the clasp, and this is another Scottish one, a Victorian piece. Really beautiful. Wanted to not wear it so that you would be able to see it and see all of the agate that is carved. So what does a buckle motif mean to the Victorians and in their symbolism? This is a good place for us to start. Love, fidelity, strength, protection, and an unbreakable bond. That's really what the buckle meant to them. So it was used during Victorian periods really as something that was worn by many, whether they were in love. It was also used as a memorial piece back in history as well. So let's keep going. First, I want to start with one that definitely means love. This has a lover's knot entwined into the beautiful buckle brooch. You can see that buckle again in the center, round piece. This is circa 1875, and it's got that knot, which is kind of a bit of a nod to some of the exploration that was being done worldwide as well. So in like the Algerian love knot, that was what it was known as, tied with the buckle motif together. The next one that we're going to talk about is the one that I'm wearing today and the one that was in the preview. So again, we've got a circle and it kind of has no beginning, no end, meant to mean eternity, kind of like a buckle. It was seen as being closed up on itself, meaning that there was no beginning, no end. It would last forever. It was eternal. And in the center, we have a beautiful buckle motif there too. I wanted to show you the back on this one. So again, in these older pieces, as one would expect, you do see that T-bar hinge, and then our C catch as well. Thank you all for helping each other to know to make sure to add the hashtag all caps buckle in so that you have a chance to win. And we're going to move quickly into one more Victorian piece that I want to show you both in slide and also hold up. So this is another one around 1870, and this one comes to us from British India. You can see in the back some of the craftsmanship. Again, you've got the right findings on there, T-hinge and C-clasp, and you can see where the indentations are because it is all handcrafted. So I'm going to remove that. This came to me in a wonderful box, and I will do another video on the Raj period in India and some of the jewelry, the British jewelry. But I like to believe that this was probably something that was sent back to someone's loved one. Perhaps there was a military campaign or they were over there as a merchant and they wanted to send something to their loved one. And we have a double buckle. Double buckles often had to do with love, unity, fidelity. Let's hold this in close so that you can see. And to me, it is just amazing how these pieces have survived, especially, after centuries and in their original boxes as well. So this one's quite special. It is all engraved and is what you would expect for the period. I love how smooth it is on the front, and then in the back you see some of the workmanship and evidence almost of like that hammering. And again, there is exactly what you want to see in terms of the period appropriate catches. See catch over here and hinge. I am reversed, so it is hard to see me. And I don't know if you're going to be able to make out the details inside this box, but I will hold it up. And that is for our British Indian jewelry maker. And I will do a video on Raj period jewelry and just the Raj period because it's quite fascinating as well. So that was one more from the Victorian period. Of course, there's more to look at, but we are going to segue now into some mourning jewelry and how the buckle motif was used there. It was a bit more of a memorial, and it was more of a nod back to remembering your loved ones and how you have a source of comfort of thinking about them. So here are some examples. We've got 2 lockets and a wonderful hair brooch in the center. And the lockets do have some black enameling, as one would expect, really quite common. We've got some neoclassical nods in the center and almost that Gothic revival look to it. And I love seeing white hair or light hair in brooches because often it means that it's from someone who had a really long, wonderful life. So these are really beautiful pieces. Blue enamel sometimes meant rebirth. Usually the darker blue is reserved for a nod to royalty. And if ever you see white, that is usually a nod to purity or possibly virginity if it was a child. So fascinating information about mourning jewelry. Now, I have a teeny tiny mourning jewelry buckle from the later Victorian period to show you. This is it. It is tiny, almost a lace pin, and it is black enamel on a gold fill backing. There we have it. And it is tiny. And I want to bring this to your attention just as a reminder to all to always make sure that you think of scale of things when you buy them. So this one, I knew it was going to be teeny tiny because it said it was small, but it was even smaller than I imagined. Almost doesn't cover my whole pinky fingernail, which is such a tiny little piece. So again, this probably would have been used as a lace pin worn very close to the body, perhaps holding straps in underneath a corset. And these pins, this one I would say is later Victorian because the smaller they are, the later they are in order to go through the finer fabrics that were being introduced as they innovated with their technology. So that covers some fantastic pieces from the Victorian period, the mourning period, but we're going to keep going and we're not going to go too far. We're going to head closer to 1900. And with that, we are going to go into Russia. And so this is a fantastic sterling brooch with some gold accents that I was able to find. It's got some Russian hallmarks that are virtually impossible to see unless you get literally like a microscope out. A loupe is barely strong enough to see them as well. But what I love about this one is that it is a little bit later, closer to 1900, and it's got some nods to almost like the movement of naturalism. They feel almost like fish scales or like feathers. So I'm going to add a close-up of this so that you can get a really good look to it. Similar to some of the other aesthetic pieces that you would see during that period, which is 1885 to 1901, kind of went worldwide, even though it was a Victorian term aesthetic period. We've got the gold in the buckle and in that hoop, the finding that follows all the way through, and then you can see those details. And we will take one more look at the back. Again, here is where you've got the same background that you would expect to see, the same findings that you would expect to see. So a C catch and a T bar as well. Now, this is another one, same time period, much larger, much more boisterous, and this is from some friends in the USA. This is a fantastic Egyptian revival buckle. We can see 2 versions of the Sphinx, and it is a buckle brooch, or known as a sash pin, and it has hammered details. You can see it front to back as well, and this was made by the Apollo Company in New York, and these are highly collectible. It's just made out of base metal, but it is a big one, and I am going to remove that from the stream and hold this up so that you can see it large. I like to wear this one actually on my hip with a skirt or like on a dress because it is huge. It's a little bit on the heavy side as well. Let's flip it around so you can see the back in person. So what I love about this is that this has almost 2 renditions of the Sphinx, and the details, the hammering is really quite fine and very indicative of the Apollo Company's work. Again, also very Art Nouveau or almost arts and crafts-ish with the way that it was kind of roughly and brutally made. Now, next up, from the same period, we have a Canadian version. I have hunted high and low to make sure that I'm covering my own nation as well. There were not nearly as many jewelers in Canada. So this is from the Rodin brothers, and it is from the same time period. We've got some excellent etching. And this company actually was acquired by Burke's, which is Canada's Tiffany, very close after the turn of the century. Again, this one's big, but not nearly as big as this guy. This one is made in sterling. And I'm now going to show this one to you in the stream as well. So here we have it. Again, a very similar detailing at the center buckle that is in there. And you can see on the back the details signed Rodin Brothers. And this one, really interestingly, is also signed sterling, which you would expect to see in pieces beginning from 1870 onward. A nice early piece from them. Now, jewelry became lighter and lighter as time progressed because it was able to fit nicely on the thinner fabrics that were coming out. And also, women wanted lighter jewelry so that they could wear small pieces as they got out more, started to play tennis. Maybe they were out more in public and they were able to take more involvement and participate in cultural events. They didn't want to be weighed down by quite so many heavy pieces such as this. So the Edwardian period takes us to a smaller piece next. This one is made of guilloche enamel and is just a beautiful pin with beautiful details. Let's get in close so that you can see. So guilloche enamel, what that means is that it's essentially engine-turned metal underneath the enamel so that you can see the patterning, and you can see it quite well on this. This is from 1913. We know because of the hallmarks it is dated on the back, and I'm going to show you the back as well. There we have it. This one has a CH mark. Some would try to attribute it to Charles Horner, but I do not believe it is. I believe it is another company that is lesser known because the enamel work isn't quite right for what I would expect to see from Charles Horner. So this is my little Edwardian nod to the buckle. And next we're going to move into one of my favorite periods, although I'll be honest with you, I love all the periods, and that is the Art Deco period. The pieces that I'm going to show you from this period are dress clips as well as a fur clip, and we've got two that almost work as brooches as well. So let's begin. I am going to start by pulling it up on screen so that you can see them together. I'm not quite as dexterous with both my hands, so here we go. These are two fantastic clips that can be used as shoe clips or dress clips, and I love to wear these together, having the outside buckle alternating to either sides. These are made in silver and very similar to that larger Canadian Rodin Brothers piece that I showed you. Here is the back. Again, just a very simple pin with a simple clasp so that it's easy to get on and off. And I will take this out of the stream and show it to you. So my favorite way to wear these is actually when I'm wearing a dress on either side, truly as a dress clip. There we go. So if you have dress clips, I strongly suggest that you try wearing them with either shirts. If you've got a good collar, like a strong square or a sweetheart neckline, they work really, really well. And a good buckle motif always looks good as well. So during the Art Deco period too, not only were there some fine jewelry examples, there were costume examples. And as you are all probably familiar with costume jewelry and with the duet that was introduced, they often nodded a little bit to the buckle. So we will talk about duet jewelry another day, but I did want to show this example. And this is made by the Ciro Company. It is quite special, really beautiful, bright, blindingly bright pastes in sterling. And in the back, this comes apart into two dress clips and has that buckle motif. And then the next piece I will show you is one that came to me from an auction, and it is one of my favorites. This one is a fur clip buckle, and it has amethysts and diamonds, and I will take you in closer so that you're able to see it. This one's in white gold. We'll add it to the stream. I say that it is circa 1925. Remember, white gold really was kind of introduced and popularized after 1918, so that does help us date pieces very well. And we've got a lot of calibre cut stones, which is exactly what you would love to see in a nice deco piece. And we'll take a look at the reverse so that you can see that fur clip. So when you've got two prongs, like you're seeing on screen right now, this is something that would go piercing through the fur and perhaps the underbelly, or like the suede that would be underneath the fur, so that it could hold your cloak closed or just be a really great accent look. So this is a stylized buckle, almost made to look a little bit floral, and I'm gonna add this as well so that you can see the details up close. So this is from around 1938, and it is made by a wonderful jeweler, Carter and Company in Portland, Maine, and they really only worked during a short period, which helps us date this. Now, the streamline moderne or retro moderne period focused on these curvilinear designs when many others were starting to go a little bit more square and more modernist. And so this is how we can date this beautiful piece. And that, my friends, stops the buckles for today. There continues to be buckles used even as wedding rings. So they were very popular during the Deco period in celluloid brooches. They were very popular even in bakelite. You can still find all sorts of bracelets, and you can find wedding rings today and through the 70s, where often the couple would get matching kind of retro looking now rings, so that they could say essentially that they were joined together and the buckle meant eternity. So it continues to be a really wonderful motif. Friends, I see you adding buckle. Please make sure that you put hashtag buckle all caps so that you can be entered into the draw. And with that, we are going to segue into earrings, because this was a request from many, many people. Now, I'm quickly just going to flash basically a screenshot that you can be found online. I have made some modifications to this to add an earlier finding and then also to update the Omega finding. But we're going to go into details on this, because it isn't enough to just see a diagram like this and to be able to date things. But before we do, and feel free to screenshot this, and I will show it again a little bit later, we are going to go into the history of earrings, because it is kind of fascinating to know that they have been worn truly not just for centuries, but for millennia. And earrings were actually initially first worn by men. In our trip through history today, we are going to start with some images of portraits that have earrings on their portrait sitters. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fashion and how styles changed. We'll take a look at some of Marie Antoinette's jewelry too. And then we are going to look at some physical examples so that you know how to date earrings. To begin, in the 16th century, this is a wonderful portrait known as The Girl with the Coral Earring. And it is a beautiful image where you can just make out that earring. And coral was meant to be, good luck and ward off evil spirits. So often earrings or other pieces, usually necklaces, coral necklaces or bracelets, were gifted to children. They were also even used for teething, which is kind of interesting. Now, it was rather uncommon for women to have piercings this early on, especially at this young of age. So really interesting example of a portrait. We've got Charles I, and he is extremely well known to have worn pearl earrings, especially this large drop. And it was very popular at this point in time for royalty to show their wealth by wearing jewels, especially large pearls like this. And merchants also tended to wear earrings too. This is where it's very fascinating, because the earrings were worn by different classes. The lowest class, nobility, merchants, all for different reasons. Now, here we have a very famous portrait. It's Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring from 1665, showing another pearl drop similar to the last one that we saw. Really quite beautiful. And this is a very well-known portrait. Typical of the time, this single drop was very popular. And again, one would be quite wealthy to have a pearl like this. And faux pearls, while they were being made in the 18th century using just a very thin glass shell and then putting ground up nacre and wax inside. This is too early, so it's fascinating to wonder who is wearing this. Here from 1670, we've got another example, again with pearls and a little bow. This is a nod to the pendeloque earring, which became in style a little bit later, that we're going to talk about as well. But clearly this was a woman of means, likely nobility, who was able to afford the reams of pearls that she's wearing and these very large drop earrings. In 1720, we've got this example. The portrait is known as Lady in an Ermine-Trimmed Cloak. Again, a nod to royalty, because usually royalty would be wearing that ermine-trimmed cloak or robes. And this looks like quite a costly earring, possibly old cut, like rose-cut diamonds and some maybe pearl drops. A little bit hard to make out, but again, this style was quite popular around 1720. Now, as fashions changed, so hair was up and down, the styles changed. In the 18th century, women began to wear more bonnets, which meant that there were fewer earrings that were being worn outside of nighttime. Oh, and Samajo Polly C is telling us that the girl with the pearl earring from Vermeer is saying that the pearl actually belonged to the artist's wife and that she was not pleased. That is fascinating. Thank you for sharing. Here is our next example, some earrings from 1738. Again, this is right before bonnets were being worn, or an example of a woman wearing her very finest, where you can see the earring because the hair is being piled upwards and it is not disguised. Here's an example of bonnets and not too much hair, again with earrings in 1750. And past this point is where you will see fewer of them unless it is for the nighttime. This takes us to Marie Antoinette. Now, she obviously was a lover of fine things and had many, many wonderful jewels, and she was a trendsetter in Europe and across the world. So we're going to take a look at a couple of her earrings and the styles that were worn then. Again, she had all sorts of updos and wild hair, and she wore very, very big earrings. And here is a sampler. Now, one interesting thing to know is that these earrings sometimes were so big and so heavy that the women would actually tie ribbons into the earrings and up around their ear or into their hair in order to take some of the weight off the ear so that it wouldn't be pulling the ears down too far. So with these three examples, we've got the girandole, and this is really meant to look almost like a wonderful chandelier. Very popular look, and you can find many antique examples of these today. The next one we're going to look at is the pendeloque. Now, the pendeloque is a bit of a misnomer. A true pendeloque is actually one that has a bow in the middle and a stone that is a drop at the bottom and the top. But we now commonly refer to this style, which is essentially a drop style earring, as being a pendeloque. Now, many of these earrings, especially the larger girandole earrings, didn't necessarily survive if they were much bigger than this, because what happened is that as smaller earrings came back into popularity and style, these jewels were taken apart and they were repurposed and new jewels were created of them. So just a fascinating way of looking at these earrings through history. We are going to keep going, and we are going to jump ahead to 1850. And here we have another example of a drop earring. Hair in the 19th century started going up again. Queen Victoria began wearing earrings that were a little large. Some of the things were earrings that she had inherited, and she also had some made for herself as well. And this is a beautiful example of an unknown sitter. And then we also have some men. So, once upon a time, it was said that sailors should wear a gold earring so that if they were ever washed away at sea and they washed up with that earring, it would afford them a Christian burial. In this case, we also have the merchant class that like to wear earrings, and it wasn't just the men, but it was also the boys. So we've got a young boy in the 19th century here shown wearing a hoop earring as well. And then a wonderful old tintype too. So this one's from circa 1880, and we have a woman wearing hoop earrings. So hoop earrings, these were something that were initially worn millennia ago in the continent of Africa, and they continue to be popular even today. So it is fascinating to see how they were worn and who they were worn by through history. Here we have Queen Victoria at her Golden Jubilee in 1887, wearing some large and in-charge earrings. And then, as jewelry began to sort of shrink down in size, as women got around more and more and were doing more things, we have an example from Marie Anna, an Austrian royal member of the royal family who actually ended up abdicating because she did not marry another royal, wearing an example of a beautiful diamond earring. This is just past her wedding, and it was gifted to her by her father for her wedding. So the earrings started to get just a little bit smaller again. And the findings really allowed these to sit close to the ear. And we'll talk about those. But first, we're going to look at some Art Deco examples. And this is Lucy Durain, and she was a silent film actress. She wore famously only a single earring, and we've got an image of this here where she's got her hair covered by the caps of the period, and she's wearing one fantastic, long, expected to be costume earring from the 1920s. And then finally, we have an advertisement from 1936 where we see earrings for the pierced ear. And why this is important is because it wasn't really until the 1940s that it became more and more popular for women to pierce their ears. And it was kind of seen as even being a bad girl thing to do in the 50s. We've got a nod to that in the movie Grease, for example, where Sandy's friends influenced her to get her ears pierced. And even Queen Elizabeth didn't have her ears pierced until after her wedding. So these pierced earrings really would have been for some forward-looking women. We have hoops. We have the example of the screwed pierced earrings. And then we also have what are the kidney backs. So we're going to now go through these in detail and really take a look at each of these earrings. We will look at the diagram of them, and then we're going to look at some examples so that we can get a feel for what these findings look like. And so if you're at auction or shopping in the wild, it can help give you a hint as to what the date is based on when the findings were introduced. Now, one thing to note, the oldest findings are sometimes still used today. So when something's introduced, that means it's the earliest date that it would have been found on a piece, but it doesn't mean that the piece is necessarily from that period. So that is just something to keep in mind when you are dating jewelry. And it's important to use all of the tools at your disposal when you date it, because you should be thinking about the craftsmanship, the materials. If it's white gold, it's not going to be from before most likely 1918, unless it was a craftsman from a very specific area. So it's very unlikely it really wasn't commercialized until after then. So without further ado, I'm going to pop this chart back onto the screen, and we are going to look at these and look at the names of these earrings as well. Let us begin with the Poissard earrings. So these were initially popularized by the wives of fisherwomen, and they were called this because they kind of looked like a fish hook. And what was wonderful about these earrings is that it also allowed women to tie the ribbons through them and around their ears or up into their hair. So you can find Poissard earrings that have some examples of heavy, heavy jewels. Now, these were introduced in 1780, but these specific earrings are from about 1820. I do not have an example of Poissard earrings to show you. Unfortunately, I don't have any in my collection, but we will look at some of the old shepherd hooks, and I'll show you an example. So these shepherd hooks, we've got an example of an acorn hair earring as well as a jet earring. And you can see how the shepherd hooks were a little bit irregular when they were initially put on these older pieces. The shepherd hook was introduced in 1800. So that helps us date some earrings. And I am now going to show you a pair that I have as well, which are these rock crystal collet set earrings from the Georgian period. Long hooks, there you see it. You can tell that these are hand fabricated as well. So they aren't that typical, metal stamped out with a ball on the end that you see very commonly available on Amazon. And I'm going to try to hold this as still as possible so you can see the collet setting. So there is an example of early shepherd hook earrings. So something that you can look for is that handcrafted workmanship that is on them. And then you also want to look for materials, again, stones. And these I managed to find from a seller on Ruby Lane many years ago, and they add a nice little bit of sparkle to many, many outfits. We are now going to take a look at the kidney wire. So the kidney wire is my nemesis, introduced in 1882. The joy of the kidney wire is that it is very secure in that it closes around the ear. But as I've shared with some of you before, my ear is pierced smack in the center. And so as you can see, where it closes in the ear, which is just behind the earlobe, it actually gets to the thinnest point of the earlobe. And for me, that is a problem because my earlobe is a little bit on the chubby side. So I have some examples from the aesthetic period. So just a smidge later, they say it's 1885. These were introduced in 1882. This, I'm going to show you the front. So these are a beautiful kind of Japanese aesthetic motif, and it's a brooch and earring set that I have. Here's the kidney wire. I do not wear these, and I refuse to replace them because I want to keep them pristine. But what I do wear is the brooch, which I will show you as well. They have such wonderful movement. So funny to be thinking that my earlobes are overweight, but this allows you to see the detail of the birds, the fans, the bamboo, and almost that temple motif. So we'll talk about aesthetic jewelry and we'll talk about Japanism another day, but this is my example of a kidney wire, and they are very simple to swap out. So Ishara, if you ever buy a pair, it is super easy to do. And I could do this in like a flick of a finger and easily add it back if I wanted to. I just don't want to change them out. I really like to keep things pristine if I can. Next up, we are going to take a look at something that I do really like. And it is the screwback for pierced ears, which was introduced in 1894. These are sometimes also referred to as sleeper earrings. So there is a almost like nut and bolt type action, which allows you to screw the earring back on and off quite securely, which means that it is going to stay. And this is popularly still used for diamond earrings to make sure that the bearer does not lose them. And I'm going to show you my example. Here we have it. These are onyx, gold, and diamond earrings. And again, these can be a little tricky to put on because there's a lot of screwing required. It can take a moment or two. Come on, we're almost there. But when they're on, and you are not going to lose them. So for valuable pieces, especially if you ever think about buying like a 1-carat diamond earring, it is a great idea to get them. The post is thin. It's a tiny bit thicker than just a regular butterfly back, but those rivets in there usually fit nicely into any ear piercing. So you don't need to worry, regardless of whether you had your ears pierced with a gun or if you had it done with a needle that kind of just pulled through. Yes, nicely done, Ishara. I'm glad that you have done that because we should wear the jewelry we have. I'm just a little bit funny about that set. Okay, so these are some of my favorite backs because they are quite secure. My ears are also a little bit sensitive. I don't like having really heavy earrings, and I find that the studs, the closer they are to the ear, the better for me. Next up, we are going to look at the lever back. And this one, I don't have an example anymore because I sold it, shame on me. But this is another really interesting example where you've got a piercing that is coming through the front of the ear and is going into the back of the lever. This example is really beautiful enamel, Art Nouveau period or so, and introduced in the 1900s. That helps give us an idea as to when these earrings would likely have been made at the earliest. Now, leverbacks are still sometimes used even now in some costume jewelry. And really, some people love these. They find them really comfortable, and they are almost the precursor to the omega back that we are going to be looking at in just a few moments. The screwback is one of my other favorites. So similar to the pierced screwback, this one simply screws onto the ear, and you are able to tighten it as much as you want so that it can fit any earlobe size. I like this one because generally with my little chubby earlobes, I'm still able to slip my earlobe in and then tighten it on and get it closed up. And I do wear these even with my pierced ears. So here is an example. This is a beautiful iris glass earring. And here you would tuck your earlobe in and simply screw it until you were pleased, and it would stay put, and they're quite comfortable. It is possible to over tighten these to the point where they are not comfortable. And some people do have more sensitive ears. So really it depends on the wear and what you like, but these are fantastic screwback earrings. You can still find them today, but they were quite popular during the Art Deco period. And that does definitely help us date them. I've got another pair. These ones are rock crystal. And again, screwback with a lot of movement. As you can see, I love my rock crystal, and this pair is particularly comfortable to wear, which brings me great joy. Let's keep moving along. Next up, we have the post and butterfly back, introduced in 1929. And I wanted to show an example with a wonderful cameo, potentially nice early piece here. These are really what we have come to think of as being like the typical pierced earring finding. And so these are simply a post with a butterfly back that slides through. In this example, we have onyx and gold with a top bit and that butterfly. And the butterfly nuts are the first, I'm going to call them nuts, but the later ones are the triangular version. And I should have brought some with me today to show you, but I did not. I apologize. I will add them into the diagram, and then I will save that in another video. So here is that butterfly, again, because it looks like a butterfly wing. Most common, very popular. If someone shows you some butterfly-backed earrings and tells you they're from the 1700s, you know that's not true. They could have been converted, but based on what we know now, these were not introduced until 1929. So that helps us date for sure. Next up, we have the spring clip. So introduced in 1934, this is often what we think of as the clip-on earring of choice. And in this example, we have some beautiful glass. I would say this pair is likely later than 1934. But these are quite comfortable. Often you find them with little pads that are attached. And so this helps us date earrings as well. Now, there are earlier versions, and some of them have simply a round hoop that almost looks like an omega back without a post, and some experimental earring findings as well that different makers have. So it is possible to find them, but they are still going to be really that deco period. So that helps us to date them. And here I've got a later pair. This is from, I would say, the late 50s. These were my earrings from my weddings, pearls, some platinum, and I love them because they're comfortable and they tend to allow one to wear a lot of weight on the ear, more weight than you might usually be able to get away with if you have sensitive ears. And these were really popularized as the styles became a little bit more masculine, haircuts went up, and round or large statement earrings were being worn close to the face. So in the 40s, and that was kind of around the time where people started piercing their ears more, this is where they became quite popular. All right, let us keep moving along to the last earring finding that I'm going to share with you, which is the omega back. Many people love these because they add that extra security for holding weight like a clip-on has because of the large back, but they work really well for a pierced ear. Shara, you call clip-on earrings torture devices. Perhaps you've just not found the right one for you just yet. Now, with these omega backs, again, these are fantastic for most people. Unfortunately, they are my nemesis. They do not work so well for me because of the placement of my ear hole. But these are often used in high-end jewelry today. In this example that we see, it is gold, diamonds, and sapphires in baguette cuts. Really quite beautiful. So I hope that was helpful with regards to, how to date earring findings. I'm going to flash this slide again in case you want to grab a screenshot of it. And then we are going to do our draw. So please make sure that you add hashtag buckle all caps. I get your struggle, Ishara. I really do. Okay, let's remove this. And I'm going to quickly check the comments, make sure I haven't missed anything. I see we do have some Omega Back fans, which is excellent. Now I'm going to check to see how we're doing for our giveaway. We've got 36 entries, so we're going to do a last call. Thank you, Sherry. And what we'll do our last call, we'll do the giveaway, and then we're going to look at a couple of listing errors. So let us begin by me sharing my screen to the giveaway tab. Here it comes. We have 36 entries and I am about to hit draw. Here we go. Good luck, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for entering. And here we go. Again, this is for a fantastic Sundae Baubles mug sent to you on my dime. Congratulations, Susie. The mug will be coming to you. I will stop sharing and we will get back onto the screen. This will be headed your way to fit your beverage of choice. And we will continue to do these giveaways every weekend and also mix it up with some other things included too. But for now, I do want to show you some listing errors. And then we're going to do a little bit of virtual shopping. So with regards to listing errors today, I thought it would be interesting to first look at some earrings. We will begin by looking at some earrings that were called Victorian, and that is a little bit of a stretch. So I will share my screen. And here we are. We have here some earrings that are, priced reasonably at 20 Canadian dollars, but they are not Victorian heart earrings. These are later earrings. And we know this because the finding, this is definitely a machine-made finding. And I'm going to flip through. The enamel is beautiful. It is a nice earring, but it's going to be a little bit later. And then we also have some machine-made sort of evidence in the back of this too. So this definitely is going to be just a little bit later. I would say that it is probably like 40s or later, not Victorian. It's funny because here they say 1980s, so always make sure that you're reading. I have a feeling they repurposed a listing because the material is certainly not plastic. Really interesting listing with a lot of errors. So again, the purpose of sharing these is to talk about what you should be looking for. So if you like these earrings and you like the price, then by all means, it is worth buying. But it is worth reading through and using your eyes and all of your senses to know what it is that you're looking at before choosing to proceed with making a purchase. All right, let's stop sharing that example. And then the next example that I've got is another beautiful set. They refer to this as a vintage Victorian micro mosaic set, and that it is not. It is beautiful. Let's take a look. This listing has sold, and we're just looking at it on gem.app, and we've got a pair of earrings and a brooch here. They are saying that it is Victorian and they are clip-on. And from what we just learned with those clip-ons, they are more likely to be from the 30s, not the Victorian period. Again, you've also got an older catch. It is a costume piece, micro mosaic. This is definitely not Victorian. So now, having that earring chart, you will be able to quickly tell that that is not the case. And that's the benefit of learning all about findings and all about these pieces. we are last going to look at another beautiful pair of earrings. And this comes from a seller that has a lot of pieces that they've marked as being antique in their shop. And here we have them. So we have some antique gold Mabe pearl stud earrings, antique pearl earrings, 18K. Later though, they do say 1970s, which is smarter in their listing. But as we can see, this has the classic omega back. It is a really clear image of it where you've got the piercing that is coming through and that beautiful omega to make sure that it hits. They've also called the closure lever back, which isn't quite right. This is an omega back, but that's okay. If you're in the market, this is a little bit on the expensive side, but it's a nice pair of earrings nonetheless. However, we know that it is absolutely not antique. These are definitely from the, I would say, probably last quarter of the 20th century. All right. And then I do have something extra special to share with you in terms of a listing. We are going to do a little bit of shopping, and it is your choice if we look for brooches or if we look for, buckles, earrings. But I wanted to share a deal, and I think this is something that I'm going to start doing as part of the segments that we do together. As I look for examples to share with you, sometimes I come across some things that look like great deals, and I found this brooch that is listed as for repair. It is a steal of a deal of a price. So let's look at the listing together and you can be the judge. And if you like it, you can jump on it and buy it. The only reason that I didn't was one, because I wanted to be able to share it with you all. And two, I'm moving and I'm trying to be good. So let's do this. This is a Scottish piece. I will get you ready to see it. I found it on Etsy. And it is only $28.76 Canadian. They say it's for repair, and they have a nice video. So I'm going to play the video for you so you can see why it's for repair. So the centerpiece, they say, is a little bit loose. There's some scratching to the agate and a couple of chips, but nothing that's really noticeable when we look at it, and we will look at the listing. But to me, that repair issue is negligible. To be able to get a Victorian Scottish brooch like this, made of agate, for $28 is Canadian, is absolutely unheard of. So I really hope one of you jump on this deal. You can see it, the video yourself. The seller, I'm going to give you all the details in 1 second. There's a still picture. I'll scroll down. It's brass agate. They're calling it Edwardian. They do say very clearly that they're selling it for repair for parts, because they say the pin's not holding the agate securely and they couldn't figure out how to fix it. Well, if this is something that is interesting to you, the seller is Smots Silver, and that's right here. I hope you're able to make that out. It's SMOTS Silver on Etsy, and I'm sure that they would appreciate the sale. It is quite beautiful. Let's take a look. You can see the back, you can see the brass findings. I think this could probably still be worn very securely without too much worry. So this is kind of my steal of a deal segment that I want to share with you, and I will try to do this every week with something that is related to what it is that we are looking at together. There's that view. I think you could wear it without any problem. And for $28, you will not find a better bargain than that. So I hope that was helpful. We are going to do a little bit of shopping. Oh, you do like the segment. Okay, we will make sure that we do the steal of a deal segment, and I will show you the best deals that I can come up with. And now we are going to do a little bit of shopping together. So I've got my eyes on the chat, and I'm curious, what would you like me to look up? Do you want me to look up buckle jewelry? Do you want me to look up earrings? Do we want to look for girandole earrings or the pendeloque? You choose. The first one that mentions it, I will begin to do some digging on gem.app. Totally not sponsored, but I really do love it because it aggregates so many different sites as well. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy shopping. With me. I appreciate it. It's fun to browse together and to kind of look through things and see what's a deal, what's maybe not, what's maybe incorrect. Sometimes you can even find some amazing bargains that are labeled incorrectly as well. Ooh, a request for Victorian coral. Okay, that is very specific, and I am happy to do that. So let's begin with Victorian coral. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. And then we will look for brooches as well. And I will come back and look at the comments in just a second. So Victorian coral is our number one, and then we will come back. By the way, if you have never worn a ring as a meaty ring, I would strongly recommend a wider band. They stay extremely securely. Initially, I was really afraid to wear this as a meaty ring because I used to wear it on this finger right here. And it has stayed perfectly securely. I've been wearing it again for about 2 weeks now to see if it could stay, and I love it. Oh, Jane, that makes me so happy. All right, let's begin with the shopping. Victorian coral and then brooches. Let's share my screen. We will go to gem.app and we will type Victorian coral and see what comes up. Okay, we are getting some examples. Now let's begin. If there's something specific too that you are looking for, feel free to add it into the chat, and then I will look for whether it's brooches, earrings, etc. Oh, Teresa, I see your request for rock quartz crystal earrings as well. Okay. Now I'm just going to scroll a little bit until I see something that appeals to me that may be a bit of a deal. I really like this, but I do not like the price. This being this guy, it's beautiful. And I love the sort of pale zones as well as the darker zones. It suggests that it's not dyed and it's natural. Quite beautiful, but let's keep going and see what we find in terms of Victorian coral. Aha! There is a very interesting day and night set of earrings. I'm going to click on this just so we talk about it because it is related to today. These earrings are fascinating. It is hard to find a name anywhere for them online, but you actually put the earring through the back of your ear and then close it in the front. And these were introduced in, I want to say, like 1780s, early 1800s or so. And what makes them day and night earrings is that there's an additional piece that you can suspend from it. And the idea is during the day, you'd wear something more subtle, and during the night, you would wear the added suspended dangle. These are like a reverse lever back almost. Fascinating. All right. I am going to keep going. Let's see what else we can find. Ooh, these are beautiful. $3,000. Let's try to find something that's a little bit more economical. $590. Let's click on this one. For $890, this is an 18 karat diamond seed pearl coral and Victorian starburst pendant. And this is Canadian dollars, so, take off 30%, my American friends. This is actually not a bad deal, but I would strongly recommend that if you are interested in this, that you get the measurements and make sure that you know what the size is so that you're not in the black enamel buckle pin boat. This is beautiful. And it looks a little bit small. It looks like it was a brooch conversion. So let's go to this listing. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to take us to the listing itself. It has already sold, so let's not bother. No, you know what? We are going to bother. The reason that we're going to bother is because I want to make sure that you see what I'm seeing when I say this is a brooch conversion. So I need to reshare my screen, and we are going to share this one here, which is the Ruby Lane screen. When something is sold on Ruby Lane, you can usually still access it until the listing has been taken down, but it means you're going to scroll a lot to get to the bottom of the page. So $650 would have been a pretty good price for this USD, but let's take a look. What I want to make sure that you see there is this T-bar right at the top. I hope that you can see where my mouse is, and I'm just looking at my phone so that I can see, yes, you can see me circling. Fantastic. So this shows us that it would have been a brooch that was possibly converted or somehow modified. Still beautiful. Let's check the listing and see what they say. A beautiful circa 1880s Victorian celestial pendant crafted in 18 karat gold. Blah, blah, blah. Jump ring is a soft rose gold. Chain not included. Oh, this lovely. The proceeds of the sale went to a rescued sheltered animals program. That's wonderful. But I do not see any reference to there being some sort of modification, and it really does look like it was modified. So that is worth noting. Make sure that you zoom in and take a look at close-ups when you are doing your online shopping. We're going to go back to gem.app now and continue to look. Yes, you do see. Amazing. All right. I am also just going to turn off my banner since we've done the giveaway and share my screen so that we can continue looking at coral. After we look at coral, we're going to look at brooches, and then we are going to look at rock crystal earrings. So let us do this. Victorian coral. Now, I am going to scroll. There's a lot of necklaces that are available, and I do love these round beads. They're typical of what was worn to kind of ward off the evils, especially for children, make sure that no danger would befall them. Here is a great set. Okay, this looks like a bargain. So this is on Etsy, Family Jewels Atlanta, and it looks like for $137 Canadian, which I believe is right around the $100 USD mark. You are getting a little bit of a lot. We're going to go in and look at the details. So allow me to, again, stop sharing, and then I will reshare my screen so that you can see the Etsy listing as well. There we go. So 142.36 Canadian. And with this, it looks like you're getting a lot. It's a lapel pin, Edwardian coral stick pin, Victorian coral brooch, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it sounds like they don't know what they have other than antique coral pieces. It does look like they're gold fill with a little bit of wear. So you can see some wear here, but that's not a bad price for 4 pieces. Let's keep going and look at them in detail. So what I love about this tone of coral is that it looks to be completely natural and not dyed. The findings on this is beautiful. You've got that wonderful work, and then often it's pretty typical to see almost like these heart-shaped, I call them nails, that have been twisted around the branches of coral. So it's branch coral, and they're in like a lover's knot. Really quite spectacular. Here's another example. Now it's possible that this piece of coral was broken. It might not have always been this small. Let's see if we can get a better angle. This one looks to be complete. And again, there's either some wear to the gold fill or some tarnishing, but it definitely looks like it is not solid gold because it looks like there's that brass underneath. And here is the pin. The stick pin, I should say. I love seeing stick pins with this almost like barber pole twisted center. Usually you find that on some of the older pieces and not like the reproductions from, let's say, the 70s. And here we have the 4 examples kind of laid out. I still think that if you're in the market for coral, this is not a terrible deal. You could do worse. They've maybe seen some better days, but they're not awful. There we have it. Yeah, I do feel that this one is a little bit small. It could be by design, but it does feel a little bit small in terms of the piece of coral that's there. So I do wonder if maybe it had seen a better day and little nubbin was broken off of it. All right, let's continue scrolling, and we're going to read what they say. Dating to the late 1800s, early 1900s. It looks like they know exactly what they do have, which is great. And they just tried to put all of the keywords into their title and the prices for all 4. So if any of you are interested, let's scroll down. The seller is Family Jewels Atlanta, Lisa Cohen. All right, let's stop sharing this one. I'm going to quickly check into the comments. Hello, Jackie and everyone else. And oh, you'd like to talk about the difference between rock crystal and crystal. Yes, we can absolutely do that. I agree, pigeon blood ruby, those pieces of coral and the brooches could definitely use a little bit of a polish to tidy them up. I am going to move on to brooches next, and I'm going to assume we're looking for buckle brooches. Correct me if you want to see something different, and then we're going to do the rock crystal earrings. But before we do that, your question about what is the difference between rock crystal and crystal. Rock crystal is quartz. It is clear quartz, and it is called rock crystal, whereas crystal is glass that has lead added to it. And that's what helps make it extremely kind of shiny and also a little bit heavier than typical glass. All right, let us return to gem.app, and we are going to look for brooches, and we're going to look for buckle brooches. Let's close out of here, close out of that search term. You can see all the things that I've been searching for. Actually, I will look for buckle. Brooch singular is usually easier to find. Now, my friends, I have been eyeballing this one because it is a fairly good value, but it may have a little bit of damage to it. So let's take a look. At 69 Canadian dollars, we do have a wonderful buckle motif. It is in sterling silver. It is located in Canada, which I love. However, I do find that this little tab that usually leans all the way across the center is shorter than I would expect to see. The ball findings are what you would want to see. They don't appear to be crushed. But do you see here what I mean by it doesn't seem to quite lean all the way across, which I would expect, because that is really how brooches would stay closed. So that's generally how they're designed. We can see there the balls with minimal dinging, little dinging here. And then there's the reverse. Now we can see almost the date marks on this, and I strongly feel that this is not just vintage, but rather antique. We do have our T-bar as well as just the C catch. But I was not able to zoom in close enough in order to see what this letter mark is. So I cannot say with certainty exactly where and when it was made. So this one is not a bad one for $69, which probably translates to roughly $48 or so USD for a sterling brooch. But we're going to keep looking as well. For gold fill, I do quite like this one. Again, right at that $69 mark. Again, it does feel like perhaps there's something that may be missing, and it looks like there's some soldering in the center, but I do like this very almost a Rococo look to it. They say circa 1855, seems reasonable to me. Now, it is common to find brooches like this, similar to the examples that I showed today. Really nice large pieces. Here's a fun piece. A horseshoe, we've got dangles, we've got that buckle, all in one. So this, I'm just going to click on it, is a nice, very typical antique Victorian piece. Beautiful to look at. I'm just going to click through. It is available on Ruby Lane if you want more information. And I'm a fan of these dangles that look almost like squid tentacles or a quill. It's hard to describe them. But this is beautifully made. You can even see the nails in the horseshoe too. If you're in the market for a 14 karat gold brooch, maybe you want to check that out. Let's keep going. Here is something that is interesting. They say it is a Georgian garter and buckle pinchbeck. And then they add gold Mourning brooch, memento mori. Okay, well, that is, again, someone throwing a lot of terms out there that do not belong. I would say that this is a very interesting, likely Victorian brooch. We've got that wonderful kind of hammered detail, which is a motif that you would see. And again, you've got a buckle. There's nothing to really indicate that this is a mourning piece, and memento mori is specifically to the remember you will die, kind of circa 17th century pieces, so this I would not call that. We do have a T-bar as expected, the C catch. And it looks like this would have been like gold filled at best. They're calling it pinchbeck. Hard to know, but not a precious metal. So for $31 with its lovely work, I'd say that's not a bad gamble. And this one is available on eBay. And I'm going to just quickly click on eBay so that I can give you the information for the seller in case you are interested in finding this one for yourself. Here we are. So it is an auction with 1 day, 2 hours left. The current high bid is $31. And let's figure out who the seller is so that you can find them. Carry On England. Carry On England, which suggests to me like they may be shipping from England. Good news is that my packages from England have been coming within like 2 weeks to Canada, which is amazing. So, oh, it ships from Canada, even though it's Carry On England. There we go. Good news for Canadians in the audience. But yes, my UK packages have been coming very quickly in the last month or so. I've been really happy to be able to order from them again. All right, I am just catching up on some comments. Jack says, looks like a Birmingham made piece. You've had silver brooches in the exact same backing and sphere details. Yes, I love those sphere details. They're beautiful. Rococo. So Rococo is kind of a style. How would I describe it? Sort of a bit of a flourish, some like bows and swoops. I'll have to do maybe a video specific to different styles and what neoclassical versus Rococo versus other terms mean. And yours dates to 1886, which, yeah, that it makes absolute sense because it is very aesthetic period in design. So that makes sense to me, Jack. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen so that we can continue shopping together. Carry On England, if you are interested in this on eBay. Here is another large one. There are quite a few examples of different varieties if you are looking for a Montrose agate Scottish piece. This is a little bit on the dear side, being $4.49 Canadian. It is being showcased upside down. So there you can see some of the fine details of it and the carving and the way the agate is set. It's beautiful. We will look at the back. No tape mark here. But it does look like there may be a little bit of damage. So I don't know. This feels a little bit on the steep side. You may be observing that antique Scottish pieces are becoming more and more expensive. So that's where that first one that we looked at together for $28 is truly a heck of a steal if you are interested. This one looks interesting to me. They say a Victorian sterling silver buckle brooch with abalone and mother of pearl, late 1800s. I don't think that this is what they are describing. I would think that this may be a little bit different. So I think it's in the style of a Victorian piece, but it is marked sterling with abalone and mother of pearl that would be kind of uncommon. And then I do see another mark here. So 2 sterling marks. And this truly would be a belt buckle and not a brooch. So 65, not bad. Not a brooch, depends what you're looking for. You can find these in costume. You can find them in all sorts of different materials. This is actually quite a beautiful example. A nice sash pin, most likely here. We've got paste. It's large, as you can see. And this is sort of typical of what you might expect to see in some of the old Czechoslovakian pieces too. But there is quite a bit of verdigris. So if you look smack in the center of it, where I am circling my mouse now, we see that kind of green blue, and then you have some more, again, by the catch. I don't love seeing this on pieces. It can be cleaned. One of the easiest way to clean it is actually to use a little bit of ketchup on a Q-tip, dab it, let it sit, and then clean it off. But in my mind, 104 for a brooch with verdigris, I would pass on that. Let's keep going. This looks almost like it is a Miracle piece by the Miracle Company. It looks like it is beautiful glass. They were very well known, Miracle, to replicate Scottish antique jewelry following exact patterns. And that's kind of what I see, with a little bit of that Etruscan kind of teal in there. And then it looks like we've got glass too. And again, it's that almost Order of the Garter type buckle. Let's keep looking and see what we can find. An interesting mourning brooch made of vulcanite, and they say it is a buckle. I will pause and we'll take a look at that. And if you can make out almost that brown hue, that helps us tell that yes, it is most likely going to be vulcanite or gutta percha and not so much bog oak or jet material. You can find some really wonderful Canadian brooches, some that have maple leaves. There's a couple available right now that have beavers and other things too. It looks like they are showcasing this as part of a set. Let's keep going. I'm going to look at my comments and just see if I'm missing anything. Yes, I agree with you. The sculptural look of them is absolutely amazing. Okay, this is a Bakelite cherry red bar brooch with silver tone buckle, $41 from Bakelite by the Sea on Etsy. So this would be a great example that is 20th century. Quite interesting. I love seeing that buckle motif and in a more updated modern way. Let's look at this one. I quite like this. It is a gold fill, fancy ornate Victorian buckle. There's something about it. Again, it looks almost like a horseshoe with that buckle that's falling through. Good size in this person's hand, but can't see too much else from the pictures. They are saying that it is gold fill. It is gold color for sure. Interesting piece. If you like enamel, sometimes you can find some really elaborate enamel pieces. Again, this one looks like it's got almost like some scaling pattern in it. It's quite beautiful. See how large it is. So this is why it's very important to always look at measurements. Looking at just the photo of the brooch by itself, I would have thought that maybe it was like 3 inches, like a big one. But no, it appears to be a fair bit smaller, as we can see here. All right, I am going to scroll in these buckle brooches. Here's the one that we looked at, that we talked about, that was a deal. Again, $28 at Smots Silver on Etsy. Get it while it's hot. Something tells me that one's not going to make it past today. Here's the beaver one that I mentioned seeing. Kind of interesting here. This one, I believe, is on a base metal by West End Market. You've got the typical Canadian beaver motif, and then it's a combination of guilloche, and then it does look like we've got some like inlaid enamel into metal design too. So very interesting. Love looking at sash pins from other periods and then finding ways to wear these jewelry today. All right, let's go for just a little bit longer. Aha. Here we have an antique buckle brooch. They say it's an English silver love token buckle pin sash buckle. This one looks like it's large and in charge. I'm not seeing any marks on it, so I suspect it may be silver plate at $40 and not silver, but silver in color for sure. But there's some really beautiful details. So we've got the buckle motif, and then we also have almost some floral details around it too. So it's quite nice. I'm curious, tell me in the chat, what materials do you prefer? Do you like costume, base metal? Do you prefer sterling? What is it that you like best? And then I think we are going to click onto this one. So this is a beautiful Victorian example. We've got some Montrose agate as well as a variety of different jasper as well. Looks like this one's available on eBay. and a lot of detail in this. So there's the buckle. It's not inexpensive by any means, and I don't like the way this agate is sitting. So when you're in the market for Scottish pieces, it's really important to take a look at the agate and see if it is cracked, damaged, and make sure that it is set uniformly, because what was usually done is either the agate was, cut for these pieces, or they were formed around the agate that was available. So it is normal to see some that are kind of rising up and out a little bit, like we see on the smaller pieces. But this red piece that we see that almost has, like, I'm going to call it black tar inlay, that's not really what you want to be seeing. You want them to be sitting much, much more flush. Especially in a really good quality piece like this, it's unusual that they would have finished it in this way. So this appears to me like it was a repair. And you be the judge. You may not want to spend a couple $100 or $300 on a repair or a piece that has been repaired. So again, this is where uniformity matters. If this is how it's sitting across the other side, it was likely to have been set the same way. And we can see from the back that it also looks like there were some repairs here too. So just take a good look and make sure that you always know what it is that you're buying. We've got sterling pewter, gold and sterling. Yes. Okay. I think we all like a lot of the same things. I am going to click on this one because I like it. It does have almost that Order of the Garter inside a beautiful piece. Again, it's on eBay, but it does have a chip right at the top here. And let's just click through the images and see what else we can find. Yeah, it almost looks like it has a little bit of glue or something unusual in some of the areas. And this appears to be either banding or some of the underlying back that is sticking out. Okay. So these pieces, these Scottish pieces, were often put onto like a backing of black slate or black stone. And so it's a good idea to always check to make sure that it is not cracked if it is revealed. Sometimes they're fully backed in silver or another metal. So this one from behind looks okay, but there are some just details in the front that I am not loving. But it's still beautiful. All right, I am now going to scroll not ridiculously fast, but a little bit while looking to see if there are any final bargains that we should click into before we start to look at rock crystal earrings. Let's see. Okay, I can tell you that the Art Deco buckle pin that I got was nowhere near this. I managed to find it at a charity auction, and I really lucked out. Mine was only a couple $100. That is really interesting and quite an expensive piece with sapphire and diamonds. All right, the last one that we're going to look at is this one. Reason being, this is the brother of the poor man's first example that we showed for $28. So this is, again, what they're saying is an antique Victorian carved brooch. Will take us back to the original one that was only $28. So here's what it looks like from back and how it was set. There we have it. This one is $166 Canadian, and it's available on Etsy at Oxford Jewel. Really does look like it's in quite beautiful condition, not seeing any nicks from these photos at all. I love looking at reflections in stones to see if I can notice anything that could be, an imperfection to it. And so this one is at Oxford Jewel, and I'm going to stop sharing this one so that I can then reshare the deal one that we initially found. So allow me to share that one again. Here we have it. Okay. We will go back to the video so that they show us the looseness again for $28 after seeing that last one for, 7 times that, almost 8 times that. This doesn't seem like a bad deal. Still available. Add it to your basket, friends. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Quickly check in chat. Marlene, I understand exactly that you don't like the clips. Vintage clips can be very small. Every once in a while you look out, especially like this one is a big clip or that's a big screw back. But I know what you mean. A bigger clip is better. Sometimes they're really those skinny little ones. All right. As promised, I am now going to look up rock crystal earrings. So let's share my screen back on gem.app. I agree, Pigeon Blood Ruby. Let's go to gem.app. We are going to leave Oxford Jewel. This is actually a fairly good price. Sometimes they go up to like double that easily. And we are going to look at Art Deco rock crystal earrings. And I'll spell rock correctly. Okay, so here are some examples. Friends, I think a few of you are looking for some, so I am going to click in. Let's start here. This is very similar to the pair that I have. They are saying that they're rock crystal quartz and that they are also engraved with a Japan boat, which is really interesting. You can see this motif. It's a little bit different than what we often see as the pagoda that is inside the like opalescent glass examples. Here is the back. This one's available on eBay, and I am going to go to the eBay listing for us. Oh, hang on a second. I may be going to the eBay listing for us. No, it's sold. Okay. I'm so sorry. We are going to resume looking and see what we can find sold for this guy. Let's look here. So this one is 173. That's kind of getting up there. Available on Ruby Lane. And again, we've got the rock crystals that are inset at the top, and then there's a dangle with one in the middle. I do like it when there's the double drops like that. It really does allow for a lot of movement. There we have it. I actually have a necklace that has, it's a lariat necklace that has exactly the same pendant as this. So this one's available on Ruby Lane, 173 Canadian. If you want me to click into the listing, I just will on this one, but if there's something that you see that I don't click into, I'm gonna try and keep an eye on the comments so that we do. So this one is available at Timeless Antique Vintage Jewelry, and I'm going to share their listing with you so that you can see exactly what I'm seeing. Here we go. 125 US. You can make an offer. I do love it when that feature is available. Looks like a few people are interested. Again, this is Timeless Antique and Vintage Jewelry that has this available. And here's what I refer to as the double drop. So it's when you've got, that top little bit of sparkle spangle and then an additional drop that holds this down. These would also be really easily convertible if you wanted to turn them into pierced earrings. Let's keep looking at the photos. Again, nice facets on this. There's a good photo of it as well from the side. I want to see the back to see if we can see if there is anything that says sterling on the findings so that we know what the material is. And I'm not seeing that. Let's read on. They say they are hand-carved, genuine, transparent rock crystal quartz. Each earring weighs 3 grams, no marks, but tests is sterling silver. So there we have it. Beautiful. So if this is something that you're looking for, 125 is not a terrible price. You may be able to find something cheaper, but let's keep looking and see what we can find. I am heading back to gem.app and we will continue the hunt. Okay. I'm going to look for the oblong drops, similar to mine. $683. This just seems ridiculous. I'm not going to click into this, but we will look at the photos. Available on Etsy. A little bit too much. Although, you know, the seller sets the price, and that is the way it has always been. Market dictates what prices go for. Here are two beautiful pairs, three beautiful pairs. Let's start here. We've got this one, vintage Art Deco faceted rock crystal clear bead silver tone screwback earrings. Okay, so, you know, when I first look at this, I can't help but think that it looks like it may not be rock crystal. I say that because of the way that it is kind of refracting. Wow, can't speak English anymore. Light. And this looks very much like they're almost too uniform and like beads. And I do have a pair of glass beads that are very similar. Doesn't mean that it's not. Let's see if they've tested them, because if they've tested them and they're willing to guarantee them, then sometimes it's worth taking a chance. Let's go to the listing itself. Allow me to stop sharing and start again. It's a lot of clicking. I hope I'm not making anybody dizzy. I apologize if I am. Okay, here we have it. Vintage Art Deco faceted rock crystal clear bead silver tone screwback earrings. And we're scrolling down to see what they say. Please see photos. They're part of the description. So they have not told us whether they've been tested. They call the metal silver tone. They call the main stone crystal. I believe that these may not actually be rock crystal. So this is one where for $34, not a bad price for some glass earrings. Not a great price. It's kind of middle of the road. But I wouldn't necessarily put money on this being faceted rock crystal. So let's keep looking and let's find something that we like a little bit more. Exactly. They should not look plasticky. They shouldn't look molded. They should look like they have beautiful, sharp facets. I agree, Jane. Okay, let us go back here. We'll pass on those. These are $276. They are larger, so depending on what it is you're looking for, these are available on eBay as well. I'm going to see if we can find ourselves a bit of a bargain. So let's keep going. All right, these look better. Sterling silver rock crystal earrings, Art Deco screwback. These are on Ruby Lane, so we are gonna now take a look. Stop sharing, share again. And where's my Ruby Lane listing? Here it is. Nope, wrong one. I have quite a few listings open, so I need to start closing these. Okay, from Lorenzo's Vintage, $39 and accepting offers. Let's take a close look at these. These look much more like that first pair that were significantly more expensive. Let's scroll through the images. Looks like they are lightly drilled and set, which is what one would expect to see, and then settings on the top stone. Sterling on the back. It does look like there's a little bit of glue, so let me just zoom in. Okay, zooming in didn't do anything. That made it smaller. So let's take a look. Just if you can see where my mouse is circling, that little bit of yellow, initially I thought maybe that was just light refraction, but it may actually be glue. So it's possible that these were a little bit loose, and some glue is added to stabilize them. There. So let's scroll down and look at the listing to see what it says. The listings for sterling rock crystal earrings, condition is very good. Please be aware that my pictures are an important part of my description. Vintage and antique items have wears, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they're not overtly stating that there may be glue or something, but they are saying that they're in good condition, not excellent. And I do feel like they're potentially trying to point this out. Again, for $39, that's actually not a bad price at all. And I think I would personally, if I was in the market, consider taking a chance because that would not be noticeable when on the ear. As we can see here, when they're just kind of off to the side, they look pretty good overall. So if you're willing to live with perhaps a little bit of glue residue that's not obvious, it could impact the long-term wearability, but you know, for $39, you could get a lot of fun out of them before that point in time too. Okay. Let's keep going. I'm going to quickly check to see if I have missed anything. Yes, a gem tester is always the best way. It is really hard to identify anything by a photo. So what I will tell you all is that you should use a gem tester. If you collect a lot, if you resell, you should be testing things. You can never tell just by eye alone and never just by a photo. So there's a lot of people that are willing to like tell you with certainty, oh, I know that I'm looking at turquoise. I know that I'm looking at a diamond. You don't know until you've actually tested the stone. You can say, I believe it appears to be, and that's about as far as I would ever take it. So let us continue. And that's where in the listings, I'm often looking to see if people say, like, I've tested this, it has been tested as. That is really the best way to know exactly what it is that you are getting. Okay, let's see what other bargains we can find. We have a whole set for $192. They say this is an Art Deco sterling rock crystal quartz necklace and earring set, also on Ruby Lane. Let's go to this one next. I'm just going to close out some of my tabs really quickly. Allow me to remove that from the stream. There we go. And now I'm going to share again. Yes. Are we calling Pigeon Blood Ruby PBR now? I love it if we are. To the set on Ruby Lane. Traces of Time has this on offer. So for $139 US, it is a set. We've got that classic, almost like Y design necklace, and then earrings as well. They are indeed the screwback clip-ons. Fairly good size. Let's see if there's some measurements for us to go by as well. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me just quickly look at the finding here. Looks like there's sterling on the chain as marked, and to this. All stones test as genuine quartz. So this helps give me faith when I'm buying, and then when I receive, I like to test. A very beautiful Art Deco sterling set, they say. The largest stone is 3/4 of an inch in diameter, the smallest 5/16 in diameter, and it's a 16-inch necklace. The largest stone on the earrings is 1/2 an inch. Beautiful. So, for $139, a full set, including quite a few stones in sterling. Not a bad deal. Traces of Time on Ruby Lane. Okay, next up, I am going to reshare my screen, and we're gonna look for some more deals. Let's see if we can find a really good deal. A ridiculous deal. $242 is not it. Now, this is very interesting. And it almost looks like we have floating opals and what looks like pools of light. For fun, I'm going to click into this one. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to reshare, and then we're going to talk about what we're looking at here. Okay. They say it is an Art Deco vintage pool of light rock crystal floating opal earring sterling silver. Now, this is what I would expect to see as a pool of light, in that it is an undrilled crystal orb, and it does appear to be some of the drops, the floating opal drops. So floating opals, and I will be talking about this in my next Sundae brunch, were developed by Horace Welch, and that was really at the turn of the 20th century. And he had a patent on it that was exclusive to him up until the point in which he died, and then many other companies started to make them as well. Now, I'm going to read this description because it would be unusual that these actually be from the 1930s. I feel like these may be put together from different components, because Horace Welch's floating opals were generally in gold, and these, if sterling, would be from another company. So let's just give this a read. The pools of light crystals are clear without fog or blemish in my camera, blah, blah, blah. Sterling floral wraps, as is commonly seen. Doesn't ship to Canada, so I'm out of luck. I don't know. There's only one image on this. I think that each person needs to be the judge. But to me, this does feel like it is likely put together of older components. And I would say that it is possible that that is a pool of light component, but again, doesn't say that it's been tested. These have been reproduced in glass. So it's kind of like a buyer beware one on this. Let's resume our shopping. Yes, looks like a marriage for sure. Thank you, Jagar. Yes. Either more than one pair, or like a necklace was taken apart and many pieces were made, or yeah, that I've come across that Etsy shop before, and it looks like they may take components and remake things. So I don't know. And especially at that price, if any of you have been shopping for pools of light or even floating opals, it's kind of unheard of. Let us resume our shopping. Yes, they are beautiful. I am heading to search. Thank you for joining me on that distracted little sideways walk. It looks like we are not just finding the faceted rock crystal anymore, but pools of light should be made of rock crystal. And that is why we are now coming up with more and more of these balls rather than just faceted pieces. And some really beautiful, I can't help myself but to click on these antique Art Deco carved diamond and rock crystal earrings. How beautiful are these? Throw that on a wish list for a day far, far away. Okay, here are some some screwback, open back sterling earrings. They look like they're fairly large, and this style is similar to what I showed you with the iris glass earrings, and maybe quite comfortable. 97 Canadian, kind of middle of the road in terms of pricing, but I really do like the basket setting that would let a lot of light in. That's what's kind of attracting me to this. And it looks like it is a relatively nice diameter size. So this is on eBay. And we will take a quick look at the eBay listing. Which means that I need to stop sharing and then share again. To eBay we go. Okay. It looks like this seller is accepting offers as well, $69 US if you are interested in these. Let's take a look. Can we see any details that say sterling? Not seeing a whole lot of marks. But I am seeing some faceting on the sides of these that will help them reflect light really beautifully, which I do love to see. There, you can see on the underside as well. They're very well faceted. Okay, let's continue on to the listing. Antique Art Deco, aha, rock crystal paste, open back sterling screw earrings. So this is why you should always read the listing. They have disclosed that they're paste, which means glass. But that is not, oh, it is evident in the listing and I missed it. Always worth looking and reading twice. So for paste earrings at 70 USD, I think I would probably pass on this one, even though they're beautiful. Let's keep going. I will return to gem.app. And if there's something else you want me to look for as well, please let me know. Maybe we should look, no, I'm going to save floating opals for next time. In 2 weeks' time, I'm excited to share opals and floating opals with you. I've got a couple of floating opals in my collection. I'm going to hold off on those. But I am going to click on this because this is what they're calling Art Deco Pools of Light Rock Crystal Sterling Silver Screwback Earrings, 2 2/8 inches. And the drops do look correct for some wire caged earrings. So let's go take a look at these on eBay. They are 173 Canadian dollars, which I'm going to tell you once we land on eBay what that amounts to in terms of US dollars. 125 USD, and they have a buy it now option in case you don't want to wait. Looks like there's a few watchers. Okay, so what I like about these is definitely the chain findings do look appropriate to the period. You can find more modern reproductions using like this wire cage look for pools of light. So this is where it's nice to see some additional findings, and it does look like these are original. I do love this is what I call like that double drop where you've got the piece on the top as well as the drop, the chain. It doesn't look like they were altered. Can't quite make out any details on that to see if it says sterling. Let's read their listing. Art Deco Pool of Light, rock crystal sterling silver screwback earrings, 2 2/8 inches. Earrings are in good pre-owned condition. No issue except for some silver patina. The bigger crystal orbs are undrilled. Yes. So that is something important to mention when we talk about pools of light. This top component, not pools of light. Crystal, sure. This should be undrilled in order to be referred to as being a pool of light. And the idea is that it needs to be completely whole in order to reflect all of that positive energy. And, you know, they were said to have been rock quartz crystals that descended from Mount Fuji and were eroded with water into smooth, perfect spheres. That's a myth, but they are beautiful. All right. So the seller on this, I suppose I should make sure that we talk about who it is in case anyone is interested. Where is their detail? For Sweet Lil 2. Goodness, these names are complicated. For Sweet Lil 2. In case you're interested, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to pop back into the chat and see. The floating opal on wire. So we will talk about, you know, what was done in order to get around the patent. But essentially, there's a lot of really great patent information for floating opals and exactly when they were made, who was allowed to make them, who tried to make them. Then the opalite company came along and began making them as well. It's a fascinating story, filled with heartache for that family. Is there anything else that you all would like to look? And thank you, PBR. I'm happy to continue searching for anything you'd like. I do want to make sure that I get off in time for Janda Panda because I think she's on at noon PST, which is 3 for my Eastern friends. And I'll just take a look into the chat. Would I clean those? So no, I don't like to clean silver patina unless there's some level of detail that needs to be brought out, in which case I will very, very lightly touch it up. And that's about it. Victoria dragon pins. Victorian dragon pins. Okay, dragon pins. I can definitely do that, Michelle. I'm assuming you mean like dragon as in the figural dragon and not dragon's breath. If you mean dragon's breath, just drop me a note, but I will keep an eye on chat and I will start looking up Victorian dragon and see what we come up with. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen and we will go back to jen.app. I'm going to start with Victorian Dragon because it is a little bit broader. And sometimes when you're searching, it does help to go broad. And from there, you may have a little bit more fortune finding what you're looking for. Yes, figural. Okay, awesome. So then why don't we start with this one? It looks like a serpent of some kind for sure. This is kind of amazing. From Discovery Antiques on Etsy. It is a pendant, so not quite a pin, but still worth a little bit of a tour. Now, I don't know if I would call this a pendant so much as it looks like it was a stick pin that was potentially modified. And I'm trying to see if I can get good detail in order to make out what the diamond is. No, this looks to me like it could be an Art Nouveau piece, but it definitely has had a little bit of fudging done to it. So it may have been a stick pin or something else. And I do not like the price. So we're going to keep going. You said pins. So I'm going to try to find pins. I'm going to start by scrolling and see what we come across. What is this? Ooh, this is interesting. They say it's an antique Victorian sterling silver dragon pin brooch. It is not inexpensive at $3.45 Canadian. And it looks like it is potentially a watch pin as well as a brooch. I wonder if there's any markings on it, because at that price, I would love to see a few more markings. We are going to click onto this listing and see what we can find, because it looks fascinating. Yay! I'm glad you have it, Shara. It is truly a great app. And the people that made it are really kind and always searching to add more marketplaces as well as independent vendors too, so everybody has a fair chance. So if you have a store or a website of your own, do reach out to the folks of gem.app and make sure that they are scraping your site and getting your listings added. They're really nice people. Okay, let's zoom in. Look at those details on our dragon here. Looks like he has feathers as well as scales. I'm going to keep clicking. I want to see the back, because I do think I see some marks. It looks like it says sterling. Now, this is not a classic T, so it's a little bit later. I don't know if I would call this Victorian. It may be more of like an Art Deco first quarter of the 20th century piece. And it is a little bit on the small side, but this is definitely a great dragon. So don't know if this is the budget you had in mind, but if it is, okay, not bad. They're saying 1910s. Stamp sterling. 1.1 inches by 0.9, so quite small. Minor age wear and so on. And this one, blah, blah, blah. Where are they shipping from? Devi Dove of Coletto Reserve is the store. So Coletto Reserve, in case you want to follow up on this one. And I'm going to stop sharing and then reshare. We are heading back to gem.app. And I'm going to double check to see if I've missed any comments. Yes, it does look very special. It was a nice example for sure. Okay, dragon pins. What else can we find? Well, we've got this goodie for $7.25. This one is a 10 karat gold Vibria Wyvern Victorian piece. You are paying retail here. There's this piece as well. Now they're calling this one a Victorian Damascene Dragon Brooch. I don't know if I would call that Damascene personally, because I'm not seeing that sort of enamel that is pressed and inlaid in between the carving. A lot of canes. A little bit of dragon's breath. This looks interesting. What is it? They're calling this a Victorian Vintage Amethyst Glass Dragon Gargoyle Griffin Sash Pin Brooch. So this one is, again, a little bit on the larger side and definitely has some verdigris to it. So I don't know that I'm going to click in for $248, but it is available on eBay. Glass and brass, but with some verdigris. Let's keep looking. I think we can potentially do better. This looks like a stick pin conversion, which is why it's so teeny tiny. Always watch for scale. So when you see somebody holding something in their fingers, it's definitely worth saying, like, okay, if this was in my hand, what's it going to look like? Because it is beautiful. But if it was a stick pin, it may look a little bit smaller when it's being worn as a pendant. So it's really good to keep that in mind, because sometimes these pieces can get lost on the collar line too. Ooh, what did I miss? Okay, here we go. This, they say, is a charming Victorian Art Nouveau brass-winged dragon green glass belt buckle. And we will take a closer look. It looks like we've got our bulrushes, some very typical Art Nouveau motifs, and a buckle. It appears to be just a base metal, and this one's on eBay, and we will click on the eBay listing. And it looks like it is a belt buckle, so not quite a pin, but if you wanted to try to do a conversion yourself, what I'll do is I will just stop presenting and I will present that real quick so we can see who has it on eBay. The seller is Denos, D-E-N-O-S-E, and it looks like they have it as a buy it now for $42.50. Could be an interesting piece. I do like the details in it. Let's scroll down a little and see what they say. They did not try to clean it. Stone has some roughness, would be a nice piece to repurpose. And only ships to the US, no returns, no international shipping. All right, so there's that one. We are going to keep looking. I'm going to stop sharing and double check my comments. The same dragon as the other one. Retro reflector Christmas ornaments. Jewelry like that. Ooh, that is a good question. I'm going to take that one offline and make note of it on my stickies. Are you thinking like costume jewelry or more fine jewelry, PBR? Because you can find all sorts of things of different types, but I'd like to get specific. Let me know. And let's keep going. Okay, here is a Victorian brass serpent dragon pink glass, 2-inch brooch pin estate. Well, this one is at least a brooch. Does look like maybe there's some wear to the glass on eBay, but why don't we take a look? Which requires me to stop sharing and reshare, and here we go. Our seller is Gemma562. Nice pink glass. We've got that dragon and his face. I do like these details. And here's the back. Now, the reason why it looks so reflective and almost has that Vauxhall glass effect is because it is closed back. So I think it would be really nice and reflective. You know, when you see almost like that, like an oil slick on top of the glass, like we're seeing right now, sometimes that can be cleaned up really easily just with a like cloth, a dry polishing cloth. I do want to see if this is anything more. Yeah, you can see some really good reflection. And we'll scroll down to their description too. Some small scratches to the glass they've disclosed. The pin stem hinge is a little crooked, doesn't affect the closure. And that is pretty typical for a lot of these larger brooches as well, especially like the sash pin type brooches, is that they can be a little bit wonky and a little bit uneven. They haven't shown us a full picture of the back. So, you know, for $75, I might want to ask them if they could send me a photo. But as long as it closed, that's not terrible. I'm going to stop sharing, pop back. No problem, Michelle. It is my joy. Okay, I am going to do one more little look, and then we are going to call it a day. Gotcha. There is a gem cutter PBR named Cosnar Gems, Kosnar, that does some really incredible gem cutting, but I don't think that's quite what you're looking for. And let's go back to gem.app. We are going to do one last look for dragons, scour this and see what we can find. I'm going to click on this just because I want to know why they're saying dragon. I do not see dragon. Oh, it's on the side of the ring. There we go. Okay. Well, for the low, low price of 2,580 Canadian dollars, you can have this antique, I would call this just a mosaic, not a micro mosaic ring with a dragon on the side. Each person has their own budget. I'm going to pass on that and I'm going to keep looking. Let's look at this one instead. This looks more interesting. Allow me to share my screen. We're going to go straight to the eBay listing. This will be the last one that we're going to look at for today. So let's take a look at it together. Here we have it. Okay, an antique Victorian Asian dragon yellow faux star sapphire glass belly pendant. That is a mouthful. And I'm just getting in there. So that is beautiful yellow satin glass. You can tell because of the swirls. We've got our dragon, maybe griffin. I am wondering if this was repurposed from something because I get the feeling like it wasn't maybe always a pendant. Here's the back. Yeah, I have a feeling this would have been either a brooch or maybe even a buckle. And they've simply added a loop in on one edge in order for it to be worn as a pendant. But you could probably have this very easily converted, or you could add a second loop. And that way, when it was being worn, it would hang perfectly straight as well. So what I would do is potentially add a loop here as well as here, and then add chains coming from both sides. And then it would sit much more centered on the neck. The price is $49.99. Seller is 71 JMJ, I think. I'm trying to read this. Let's go in there. 711 JMJ. Perfect. Tiny type, hard to see. And they are taking offers as well. So something to look at. I'm just going to scroll down and see what they say. They think it may be a turn of the 20th century Chinese expert. Unmarked. And they haven't really told us what the material is. Let me scroll up. Yeah, they're saying metal purity unknown. So could be a base metal. Again, you could, and it looks like it probably is. It looks like there's like some brass that's wearing through, but you could make an offer and possibly get it for a much better price than $49.99. All right, I am heading back. How old is sapphire glass? So like glass has been made obviously for centuries. That swirly glass, that is the satin glass, That usually you see probably from the turn of the 20th century, so maybe around 1900, sometimes just slightly older. But it was quite popular during like the 20s and 30s. Sapphire glass is in like blue sapphire, kind of cobalt glass. That is like centuries old. Yes, I do believe that Jan Panda is next. Um, Gina or anybody in the chat, are you able to confirm for me? And then I am happy to pull up her link. Just allow me to sort of look away for a moment as I do that. I am going to grab her channel information and hopefully it's not going to make a whole bunch of noise for you all when I go to YouTube. There we go. I'm going to grab that link. And I'm back. And here we go. It is a great website. Oh, it turns out she's not on today. Thank you, Gina. Okay, I will have to do a better job because otherwise I get everybody excited about being able to attend something that is not coming up. The next Sunday brunch is going to be on the 9th of April. And so I do hope that you'll come back. We will be talking about opals and floating opals and likely another type of glass, either neodymium, which is color change glass, or maybe dragon's breath, to be determined. But before we go, yes, well, everyone is allowed to take a day off. Before we go, I am going to play my animation that I played at the beginning one last time for you all. Thank you so much for joining. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always, to share Sunday brunch with you. If you want to get in touch with me at sundaebaubles@gmail.com, I welcome any questions, comments, requests for future lives as well. And as always, we will keep doing giveaways for these mugs every week and cover all sorts of topics. So without further ado, I am going to share my animation. Let me know what you think. I was having some fun. And I figured, why not? Why not make something? So here it is. Take care, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope that brings a smile to your face and maybe a little dancing. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.